How we doing there, boys and girls? Matthews here and welcome back to another video. So it's time to talk about Trade Skill Master. TSM version 4.11 went into beta and we've been doing a little bit of a play around with it on stream the last couple of days, and it's time to give you guys a bit of an overview. If you've been following any goal making content over the last few days, you might have been aware that this is a thing. I wanted to get a couple of days under my belt of playing with it just to see exactly how it figures out. Now, I've been lucky enough that I've been in the alpha for the TSM 4.11, so I had a bit of a head start on most people in terms of, you know, what it's going to be, how it's going to do X, Y, and Z. But we won't go through that today. I want to, first and foremost, though, go through exactly what the TSM 4.11 update is, what it's going to bring to the table, and just how far along that progress we've got so far. Some of the stuff is implemented, but it's definitely not finished. So let's talk about it. What I thought I'd do is I'd bring up the blog post that they made. TSM 4.11 beta launch. We are thrilled to announce that the beta test of TSM 4.11 has begun. This has been in the works for a long time. We are now, what, like 6, 7, 8 months or something silly into Shadowlands at this point, and this is going to be the first major update to Trade Skill Master that we've had for Shadowlands. If you happen to be a TSM Premium member, you should have probably received an invite already inviting you to jump on to the beta and test it out for yourself. If that is the case, you can check out exactly how to do such from the link here. I will link this in the description down below for those that are interested in reading through this at their own pace. If you are interested in using the TSM 4.11 beta and doing some testing with it and trying out, you know, some of the new features and functionalities, you can do. There is a beta sign up page and it's on a first in, first out basis. So the sooner you get signed up to it, the greater the chance there is of you getting your invite, you know, sooner rather than later. And of course, in a very pay to win sort of fashion, you can jump the queue by signing up to TSM Premium, and of course that will then give you instant access to the beta. TSM Premium's not that expensive, it's a couple of bucks a month. It offers a few small perks, and of course it helps cover the cost of the creation of the add-on in the first place. I'm not affiliated with them. There's no referral link or nothing of that nature from myself. Feel free to utilize it as you wish. Let's take a little bit of a look though at exactly what is included with 4.11 and what we can expect out of it. So the Shadowlands profession support. Anybody that's been trying to make gold in Shadowlands with the professions has very quickly come to the conclusion that this is something that Trade Skill Master can't really support yet. A few things is going to be the legendary system. Anybody crafting legendaries up until this point will know that trying to utilize Trade Skill Master has been a bit of a nightmare. Work in progress on this one. We'll get to it in a little bit more detail in a minute. Secondly, all of the optional reagent stuff. So your Crafter's Mark gear, whether it be Novice Crafter's Mark, regular Crafter's Mark 1 or 2, and of course as we move into patch 9.1 in a hopefully short period of time, that will be Crafter's Mark 3 and even Crafter's Mark of the Chained Isle. That is now all being integrated. It's taken the TSM team a very long time to get it working sort of fluidly, and the core foundation of the system is in there, and of course they want you to jump on the beta to test it out and give your feedback on how they can go forward with it to, you know, smooth over any cracks left in the system. But so we can see here, to use Trade Skill Master's words themselves, the biggest upgrade in 4.11 is the support for the new profession system included in Shadowlands, which includes optional reagents for your recipes and the various outcomes of those optional reagent combinations, inclusive of the base legendary items. Now I'm hoping that this is going to be in effect for patch 9.1 with the addition of the Vestige of Origins. Even legendaries themselves are getting optional reagents added onto them come the next patch, so I'm hoping TSM are at least a few steps ahead of themselves. I hope we don't hit patch 9.1 and then realise that, you know, we're back to square one again, but I'm hoping they're ahead of themselves, inclusive of, you know, some base legendary crafting goodies. The TSM crafting UI has had some additional functionality of applying optional reagents for secondary stats and item levels. The crafting costs and profits are now accurate for the item variations you have, plus your crafting operations and task list will consider the optional reagents required. This is more of what they would actually like to achieve. It's not necessarily 100% true, at least not by my testing so far. Yes, you can add optional reagents using the new TSM interface, but certainly things like the profitability of different items, and there's still some kinks to work in the system, so be aware of that if you jump on the beta. We'll go in game after we've had a brief overview of this, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. But just be aware that things like your optional reagents, so your crafter's marks, even if you happen to choose to craft items with the addition of missives, it's not really a thing that many people do, certainly not from a goal making perspective, because it's often cheaper to just, play the lottery and craft 3 of an item and hope that you get the right secondary stats on it than it is to actually say, right, I want hasten verse. The usage of missives is still a bit of an odd one in Shadowlands because of the price of the missives, but that's a topic for another conversation. You can now, as you can see from the picture, you can add optional reagents in using the TSM UI. We'll talk about that a little bit more in detail as we get into the game. This also brings us to the part that is, in my opinion at least, one of the biggest changes, and it's one that people are going to have to get on board with, and I guarantee is going to confuse a few people. But when you understand exactly what each of these options are, it means you can set up your groups in a far more sophisticated way than you ever could before. Previously, you basically put any item you crafted or any item you gathered into a group, and then you assign an operation to the group. It's relatively simple, it's relatively straightforward. Now we have the ability to choose exactly how we add items into groups. For example, let's talk about, tailoring and the Shadowlands gear. You've got the option with Shadowlands gear to make basic item level 151 bits of gear. Alternatively, you could craft an item level 168 piece of gear. That same 168 piece of gear could have haste on it, it could have mastery on it, it could have versatility on it. They're all technically different combinations, and this causes a little bit of a problem when you come to go and sell those items, certainly when it comes to posting them on the auction house. Some people want to post everything at a micromanaged level. Some people like myself don't. We now have the option to choose either or. You can put things in a group based only on the item level, or alternatively you can still min-max everything and say, right, well, I want to sell the 168 with haste and verse for a different price than the 168 with haste and mastery, for example. This is really crucial. Once you get on board with this and have a little bit of a play around with it and start to understand it in a bit more detail, the cogs will start ticking, and it will make the creation of the groups a lot more customizable, and you can actually start to do some pretty fancy things with this. So in TSM's words again, this means you can group, for example, item level 87, item level 151 and item level 168 crafted items separately, but choose to ignore the secondary stats. Then apply a distinct crafting operation to restock any certain item level and auctioning operations to undercut the certain item levels regardless of their secondary stats. To support this, inventory tracking has also been enhanced to track these items better. This is crucial. Inventory tracking has been a big crux, a big issue in the system for Trade Skill Master up until this point. For me personally, it's been a big problem for the legendary crafting side of things. Knowing that I have 12 Umberhide helms is great, but what would be more interesting and far more valuable to me is knowing, well, how many of those 12 are rank 1, rank 2, rank 3 or rank 4. Previously, the inventory tracking didn't, nestle down that deep. It just said, you've got 12 Umberhide helms. Now it can differentiate between the item levels, and this also applies for, your 87 gear, your 168 gear, your 117 gear, for example. The more information we can get regarding inventory, the better. So big thumbs up there for me. This has actually seems to be working almost flawlessly from my testing. So yes, another big thumbs up on that feature for sure. We spoke about groups a little bit. actually managing and maintaining and adjusting and changing the groups has now been changed a little bit. One of the biggest features is a real simple drag and drop system. So you can click on a few items, you can highlight them, and you can just drag them and drop them straight into a group, which is such a time saver, and it really does, for the most part, negate any sort of like errors with, you know, oh no, I've accidentally, you know, taken a whole bunch of things out of a group and I wasn't pressing shift when I did it. Now they've disappeared into the nether. Now I have to try and get those items back. It was a bit of a nuisance. They tried to make the groups a little bit more simple to manage. I've not watched this little video. Let's see exactly what it is. So you got the item level 168 bits of gear. You can presumably then just drag the item straight into a 187 group and it will move it for you, I guess. Select all 4 of them, drag them into a volatiles group, select the volatiles group, and bang, there they are. Well, there we go. So drag and drop on your group items is going to be, it's just one of those small quality of life things, but definitely needed. Now, of course, let's talk about the thing that is the main priority for everybody. I know you've been asking for this for so long. Custom themes. Yeah, you can make it look a pretty color. Great. Next. AuctionDB changes for retail and classic. This is just more information. This is what Trade Skill Master's really good at, right? It's giving you as much information as you could possibly want about how things sell and what they're valued at. This is one of the strengths of the Trade Skill Master application, and they're now adding even more to this. So you've got the DB region sale rate and also the DB region sold per day, and of course you can reference them in operations, which will mean that the fancy TSM goblins out there will be able to utilize these in their operations to do some real fancy stuff, I'd imagine. This info is also available for battle pets, so if you are selling pets on multiple realms, this information is going to be very helpful to you, especially when it comes to, you know, having an indication of how quickly those pets are going to sell, roughly what the average sell price is of those pets, and it's going to mean you can, you know, run your multi-realm pet selling operation in a more effective manner. Changing this in both retail and classic, which is cool as well. And finally, there are a few add-on optimizations. They don't go into too much detail about exactly what they are and how they've done them, but needless to say, they've tried to make the add-on a little bit smoother, a little bit less resource intensive, especially focusing on reducing the lag when crafting. This could get relatively frustrating for people that don't have the most powerful of PCs. That 1 to 2 seconds lag every time you craft an item could get really quite annoying. But some small optimizations under the hood is, once again, big thumbs up, all good. So what's next for TSM? With all the features and enhancements they've added in 4.11, we thought of ways to share and discuss the things that they're planning to do in future updates of Trade Skill Master, and more importantly, to get feedback or input on what is important to you guys every time you're using the add-on. So there is a Trello board with a public roadmap now. This is going to sort of pinpoint things that Trade Skill Master plan to do in the future, and should hopefully give us a more communicative way of understanding what's going on with Trade Skill Master behind the scenes. For a lot of us out there, the biggest complaint for the last few months has been just like the lack of information. Are TSM even working on these sort of things? It's had to almost, for the most part, come through other content creators for anybody to find anything out at all, apart from a very select few people who have had access to the alpha. But now with a public roadmap should mean that anybody that's got any sort of feedback for Trade Skill Master, there is an official way to you know, get your opinion heard, which is really good. Gotta give a thumbs up for that one for sure. So there we go. That's the overview of what's happening in TSM 4.11. For those that are happy with that, there you go, get on board with TSM 4.11. For everybody else, I'm going to spend another 5-10 minutes actually in game now, and we're going to look at a few of the things in detail, breaking them down, seeing what actually has changed and where some of the limitations are if you do plan on using the TSM 4.11 beta, as it's a few steps forward, but it's not perfect yet. It's getting there. It's definitely getting there, though. So let's jump in game. Let's look at a few things specifically and work out exactly what's going on. So, I guess the first thing that's going to be really preferential to people is probably legendaries. So I will start there. Legendaries, of course, are the biggest potential gold making, and there's lots of people out there right now that are trying to level up their legendaries. You can now do some very basic things with the legendaries to get up and running. From a sales perspective, you can make some groups that are, let's see if I can show you the groups that I've got set up for now. In a very rudimentary fashion, I've not finished these myself. As and when I do get them fully completed, you guys of course can have them, so make sure you stay subscribed for that. You can now just put, you know, all the rank 1s in a group, all the rank 2s in a group. In theory, you could just put every single item in one massive great big group, and Trade Skill Master will, you know what to do with them. You can see here, if I hover over, you can still see the tooltips. It does, you know, show every one of these as a 210 item level legendary. It also is getting the crafting cost right for the most part. There are a few weird instances where the crafting cost is not showing. I'm not sure if that's a limitation of Trade Skill Master yet, or whether it's just user error from my part. I'm sure Gumdrops will let me know if I'm doing something wrong. But yeah, the grouping side of things, relatively simple now. From a operational point of view, selling the items you've already crafted is also a lot more simplistic now. Because Trade Skill Master knows the, I'm going to have to log on to this account to show you the sales. Because Trade Skill Master knows the crafting cost of each individual item now, rather than it always reverting to the rank 1 price, you can use crafting as a price source again when it comes to selling the legendaries. This is going to be a massive improvement for many people. Previously, you had to almost customize the operation for every single legendary and have every single legendary in its own group. That, you know, kind of got a bit frustrating really quickly, but that's one of the things that now that TSM fully understands that, right, this is a rank 1, this is a rank 3, this is how much it costs you to craft it. You can do the normal stuff that we love from TSM. So if I show you now my groups on my selling account, let's take a look at Legos real quick. Grim Veiled, rank 1s, go to operations. I just have a very simple operation now. Base Legos. It does nothing more complicated than just, you know, my minimum price is 110% of the crafting. There's no point me selling these things for less than it cost me to craft it in the first place, with a little bonus to, you know, make sure I take into account the 5% the auction house takes. But we can now do this again. You've not been able to do this previously with the legendaries, considering if it was anything but a rank 1, the crafting price it would return was always wrong. That's now fixed. Good news for everybody for sure. A couple of nuanced things with the legendaries that isn't fully implemented yet, things to be aware of, is that the crafting queue does sort of work. But I say sort of. If you're trying to craft things based on profit, that hasn't fully been implemented yet with 4.11. You will likely see things showing up in your crafting queue that arguably shouldn't be there. I tend to take a slightly different approach with legendaries, whereas I just craft everything and then I focus on selling it at a profitable price point, which means I didn't personally come into that issue. If you just want to stock 3 of every legendary and then focus on selling them, you can fully do that with the regular crafting operations in Trade Skill Master right now. But be aware that, you know, profits that it displays here, crafting cost that it shows within the default UI is not perfect yet. They are still working on that. That's feedback that I myself have provided them. I'm sure other people have also provided them, that if you're gonna give numbers, they need to be correct. A few other little silly things, like if you change the rank down here and hover over the tooltip, hovering over the tooltips for the items in the add-ons, it shows the right item level, but it never seems to be able to work out things like crafting costs. So there's still a few things behind the scenes that need a bit of a tweak and a tune. Additionally, things like the crafting costs, I can select a rank 1, a rank 2, or a rank 3. It still says it's the exact same crafting cost, so there's work in progress. These should hopefully just be simple alterations behind the scenes to get it all running smoothly, but this is why they need people like yourselves to jump in there and do a little bit of testing. Let's then talk for a few minutes about the Crafter's Mark gear, because this is what's going to be very attractive to probably more of you. So if we take let's say the Shadowlands cord, for example. Now if you want to craft items at different item levels, you can easily do that. The groups, again, it's sensible to have your groups set up in a way that supports that. So let me show you just real quick how I've managed to get it up and running so far. Whilst I don't think that this is probably the most 100% optimal way to do it, but it works for me. So like Shadowlands gear with a tailor, for example, I've broken everything down and I've put everything in the groups based on item level. So make sure you have this item level checked. And as you can see, my 117 group has got every single item at item level 117 in there. And then it's very simple for me to just apply a basic crafting operation to this group, like I've always done, to pinpoint and craft those 117 items. What's quite cool with it is that now that it fully supports the optional reagents, if you're missing Crafter's Mark 1s or you're missing Crafter's Mark 2s to craft these items, it will add those to the queue of things that you need to craft as well. So it is kind of like what we know and love with Trade Skill Master, that it's kind of all-inclusive. If you're missing items, it will tell you to go out there and gather them, either, you know, buy them off the auction house, get them off your alts, craft them if it's profitable to do so. You've seen the process, I'm sure, and it is getting there. One criticism I have is that the default UI is less effective, in my opinion, than even the default UI, unfortunately. This is maybe something the TSM team can take on board and maybe look at tweaking and changing a little bit. If I want to just go in and quickly craft 1 or 2 items, I'm not messing around with operations, the TSM interface is much slower and much less efficient. Let me just try and give you as an example. If we open tailoring with the default UI, and we want to make some Shadowlands trousers, say, at 168. All we do is we select the item, we go Crafter's Mark 2, gives us the tooltip telling us that it's, you know, item level 168 and requires level 60. We select it and we hit craft. It's only two button presses, right? It's real simple. Let's do that again real quickly. Select the item, click the button, click the Crafter's Mark, click craft. Really quick, really easy. Unfortunately, the Trade Skill Master way of doing it, it's a lot more time and a lot more clicks. And I know some of you will think that I'm really sort of clutching at straws to find a fault with this at the moment, but it's a user experience thing. Shadowlands cord, click optional reagents, click add item level. These could really do with tooltips. I know what a Crafter's Mark 2 is, but there's a lot of people out there that are going to look, well, what are these? What do they do? At least some tooltips here would be handy. I have to select the Crafter's Mark. I then have to confirm everything I've already done and then click craft. It's not great. It could be optimized a little bit more, so I wouldn't feel there's much need to use the TSM default UI over the default UI for stuff of this nature. Now, I know this is not where Trade Skill Master is designed to excel. It excels in the sort of, you know, the operations, the crafting queue, all of that sort of side of things. But from a basic entry level, just getting on board with TSM, I would imagine lots of players might install Trade Skill Master. They might look at this and they might go, nah, this is much easier. And then Trade Skill Master's out the window for them completely. But like we said at the beginning, this is the beta. It's still work in progress, and realistically, more than anything else, they want your feedback. And if you guys can give them the more feedback you give them, the better they can make the add-on for everybody. So there's not really much more I want to... maybe I should show you the groups actually real quick. The group management is actually really quite cool. There was the little video that showed it off to some degree, but if I just mess around with a few things here, I could take the lightless silk pouch from this group. I could put it straight back into just like the parent group, drag and drop. You can drag and drop not only with items themselves, but also entire groups. So say for example I wanted my legendaries to no longer be separated like I have them here. I could take just the Grim Veiled legendary group, I could drag this, drop it into tailoring, boom, and it's there. Your groups are much easier to manage, organize. Previously you'd have to do a whole bunch of wizardry to do just that very simple thing. It's a really nice little quality of life improvement for sure. Expect some really nice, well-organized profiles to start hitting the internet from people that care about these sorts of things. But yeah. But anyway, boys and girls, I think I'll leave it there then. This video's rambled on for a little bit longer. I appreciate not many of you will have probably made it to this point in the video. You just want to know what it is and be on your way. So for those of you that made it to the 26th minute of the video, thank you very much. Congratulations. Remember to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. And of course, if you're new around here, consider subscribing. We make gold making and World of Warcraft economy based content virtually every day, whether it be as a live stream or a short form factor video like this. So stick around, enjoy some more of the videos. I've been Manthius, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.